Let's start with the story, and joining me now is Dr. Sai Munsami, Emergency Medical Medicine Head and Flight Doctor Manager at Mediclinic, Sandton's Emergency Department. Dr. Munsami, thank you for speaking to us. You flew out to Zimbabwe to bring back young Rodwell. Now, in the pictures that we saw a few minutes ago, his face is heavily bandaged. Take us through the full extent of the injury.
So, unfortunately, Rodwell's injuries are so extensive. It involved losing his left eye. He has lost his entire nose. He sustained multiple facial fractures, as well as a large section of tissue being lost from the forehead all the way down to his lips. So that's what necessitated the bandages to cover up those wounds.
He's obviously a brave little boy. In the pictures that we saw previously, he is coloring his book and carrying on with life pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, he is an extraordinary young man. He has such a lust for thirst for knowledge, and that's what makes children so incredible. They're so resilient. They have so much reserve. And Rodwell may have been an ordinary boy, but he's lived through such an extraordinary journey, and that's made him an extraordinary young man.
Dr. Munsami, the surgery that is going to take place is going to be done over 20 hours. That's almost an entire day of surgery. What are the processes that will be carried out? How much of his face can you save?
So the surgery would be commenced by Dr. Rodwell Nkomazana, as well as a team of surgeons involving ENT surgeons, head and neck surgeons, to try and reconstruct Rodwell's face. It will be done as a planned procedure in various stages. The first stage will commence early next week, where he will have an examination under anesthesia done. This is to really assess the extent of his injury, to truly appreciate the amount of taking place already. And this will be done to plan further surgeries. He will then have follow-up surgeries to try and harvest tissue from his ribs. That's where they will get cartilage to try and recreate his nose. He will then have the long procedure, which is probably going to take 12 hours or so. And at that point, they're going to try and cover as much of his face with harvested tissue grafts.
Now, as a doctor, you may have been experienced to similar. Let's try and paint a picture for us of what Rodwell can expect once that surgery is complete.
I think there's still, a long way for Rodwell to go with his recovery. In addition to having the surgery, we need to ensure that all the tissue that's grafted takes, that he doesn't have any complications from the surgery, which would include wound sepsis and graft failure. And beyond that, he will still require extensive occupational therapy and speech therapy to help him with his swallowing, with his speech, as well as to help him be a little boy again. In addition to that, he's also going to require a road that heading down psychotherapy to help him recover from the trauma that he's experienced.
Now, you mentioned that Dr. Rodwell Nkomazana is the lead surgeon, but I understand that a number of other surgeons will be involved with various aspects of this procedure. Is that correct?
That is correct. There will be Dr. Jamil Desai, amongst other ENT surgeons that will be involved to try and help recreate Rodwell's face. In addition to that, he is having the medical side taken care of by Dr. Kim Barnard, who's the pediatrician, who will be basically caring for all other aspects of Rodwell's well-being, including his health and nutritional status.
Dr. Munsami, you were part of the team that spearheaded the fundraising of an amount, certainly to pay off a huge amount of this expense. Many of the doctors are doing what they're doing pro bono. Just put into perspective just how much his family would have had to pay had no efforts to fundraise been carried out.
So I think the one thing we need to appreciate is there's a lot of red tape with trying to assist an individual in Rodwell's situation. Him not being South African does place a little bit more pressure on the system, because Zimbabwe may not necessarily have the kind of capabilities to take care of him, of his needs. So flying him to South Africa, that was completely self-funded. This is of the medical escort, which was myself and Makshuda Kaji, was all volunteered. But the real fundraising had to go towards the hospital bills and the hospital expenses. Now, this is looking in the region of about R1 million. And what it really entails is about 20 hours of theatre time. It does include about a week to 2 weeks of pediatric ICU admission, which we know does not come cheap. It will also require about a month-long admission in the general pediatric ward. And in addition to that, there would also be things like consumables that would need to be used for dressings, for medication. And that's really where the figure of R1 million had come from. But we've been very fortunate in having the services of Lancet Laboratories, who, who are doing all his blood and pathology workup free of charge. We have the doctors who are providing their services free of charge. And if we had to incorporate all of those costs in, we far exceed R1.5 million. So we're fortunate to have so many, good individuals that have volunteered their time and their expertise.
Well, Dr. Munsami, we're fortunate to have individuals like you, particularly on this Father's Day, who are playing a fatherly role, certainly, in Rodwell's life. We thank you and we absolutely salute you. We're speaking to Dr. Munsami, and he was just taking us through that process of what reconstructive surgery is going to be carried out on young Rodwell, a 9-year-old Zimbabwean boy who was unfortunately mauled by a hyena only days ago.